most other first years, but yeah, not much more than that.
Dean, you've had the pleasure of being Kade's father, obviously. I just want to maybe go back a bit. Let's go to Craven Week. Everything is glorious leading to Craven Week, and you're excited as hell to watch your son. Talk me through that, just the Craven Week experience.
Look, it was the second Craven Week, that I've been to. Obviously, Kade played the previous year. Yeah. And as any father, just very proud to watch him play. And it's a great tournament, So I'm very fortunate to have gone to it twice to watch Kade and obviously watch Province win twice.
I think we must remind Dean that there are no winners of the Craven Week. It's a festival of rugby.
It's an unofficial winner.
Kade, obviously the last, call it 8 months, not even 8 months, you can probably go before your road to prelims have been a little bit of a roller coaster in that you're making a decision as an 18-year-old based on what you think is right for you to make the move overseas. And then we won't go into detail, but now you find yourself back at Western Province at home again, having to wash dishes with your dad. Talk us through the last 8 months of your life.
The last 8 months, well, it's probably been a bit longer than that, probably close to a year now, have been interesting, very interesting to say the least. I think there have been lots of ups and downs, lots of confusing times as well. Started off obviously when I signed for Montpellier back in May last year. Then obviously leading into Craven Week, then Craven Week was great, a lot of fun, and obviously the drama, if I can say that surrounded SA schools and myself not being selected and not making the SA school side. Then went off to Montpellier, was there for a short period of time, and now I'm back. So it's been, how can I say, I wouldn't say tough, but it's definitely taken its toll emotionally. There's been like I said, lots of ups and downs. So it's been a confusing time.
Talk us through the. I mean, you and I've had a conversation about that. But what about tell the viewers about your omission from the South African school side for a whole variety of reasons, some of which we can't mention. But take us through that, and then the Craven Week happening in your own backyard, having to watch other kids. Not to say you would have been selected, but you went in the running, so to speak.
I would say when I did sign, I signed before Craven Week teams even chosen. So when signing, I knew then already that there was a chance I wouldn't be chosen for the Western Province side to play Craven Week. So when I was chosen, I was extremely grateful for the opportunity in the first place. And then in the second place, there was talks and speculation that I wasn't going to be chosen or be up for selection for the SA school side. So I did expect it. At the same time, though, when the teams do come out and you do look at the list and your name's not there, it is disappointing. You obviously want to represent your country, and obviously grade 11, I didn't make the SA school side, which obviously I would have loved to then as well. So I had not received the opportunity to represent my country yet. So I was disappointed not to make it. At the same time, I think at that stage, I thought I was looking at the bigger picture and looking at the future for myself. So although it was disappointing, I did accept the fact that, one, obviously rugby is very much an opinionated sport of which selectors can choose you or not choose you for a variety of reasons. So it's not to say I would have made the side, but I was obviously disappointed not to make it. But at the same time, I did kind of accept the facts before team selections.
Zach, let me come in. Being obviously the rumors come out before the team is out, as Kade has alluded to. As soon as the team is announced, from a parent's perspective, your son is down and out. What is that feeling at home like? From yourself and from Kade, what do you guys talk about?
I think, like Kade said, it was disappointing from a parent's point of view that he didn't make the side. But at the same time, like Kate said, was he good enough to make the side? We don't know. So it's just a matter of accepting that and moving on. I think that's the way that he's. Hopefully, we've brought him up is to accept and move on, and hopefully it will make him stronger.
If we rewind now with the whole process, is there anything you feel that you could have done differently as a family, whatever the case is, to maybe put Kade in a better space? Or like you're saying, we don't know if we would have made it or wouldn't have made it. Is there anything different that you feel could have been done from the family's perspective?
No, I think we supported Kade from the beginning. When he was chosen or asked to go to Montpellier, we were happy with that decision that he was going to go. We saw it for him as an experience to go over there, and we were happy for him, to do that. So we never held him back. We never said you can't go, you should go. At the end of the day, it was his decision to go over and have a great experience over there, which I think is what did happen when you hear from him, the stories that he can come back and tell us.
Zax, let's maybe come to you as a coach. You've made no secrets about what you think of Kade's talents. What do you think of his ability, his capabilities? And we're not talking selection into SA schools. We're not talking selection into any team. We're talking about Kade as a human being, Kade as a rugby player. I want you to talk to me about that. What does the future hold for Kade from what you've seen?
Yeah, P, I'll pretend Kade is not in the picture. No, I think P. I think what you'll find, P, is that by choosing to be a fly half, he's probably done himself justice. If I compare his MATRIC season as opposed to his grade 11 season, where he played fullback, sometimes at 12, sometimes at 10. And, in a big game, let's, take the Lions versus the Western Province in that particular game, he didn't necessarily cover himself in glory. But if you look at his growth in 12 months, having played at the Cravenwick, I think I was watching the Cravenwick with his dad. In fact, we were, having a beer at Grey College. And I think it's helped streamline the way he wanted to go in terms of playing 10, because then that's time in the saddle and he can develop. Having said that, he's missed out on, let's call it, half a year of developmental coaching. So he's missed out on that, but, having had a chat, he was obviously gained in game time. So, he needs to make a decision as to whether fly-off is his thing and he's going to carry on with that. And I think he's got a bright future there. Or, he's happy to play 10, play 15. So, if I speak about his capabilities there, I think, fly-off is his position going forward. And he's certainly got the makings, to make a proper career out of it. But, that waits to be seen over the next 2 or 3 years.
I like that a lot. Kade, how much pressure have you felt from just everyone seemingly talking about Kade ever since we came back to the camp with SA under 20s? In fact, even before then, there were lots of speculations. Is Kade going to stay? Is Kade going to sign for the Sharks? That's 2022. So with everything said, how much has that yourself, you've just felt unnecessary pressure where you went, Sherbet, I just wish people could let me be?
I think there's been a lot of unnecessary, how can I say, attention, like the spotlight on me. And I think with there not being much sports on at the moment, it's kind of, people have become a bit bored. So I think any bit of news, they kind of hop onto it and really make a big deal about it. So I think that's aided in blowing this whole thing up a bit. It is sometimes frustrating seeing articles posted and the facts aren't true or facts have been twisted and statements have been twisted. I don't exactly see it as pressure because I know a lot of the time the people writing the articles don't know the full story or know exactly what's going on. So they don't exactly see it from the right perspective or from any perspective at all. I mean, it's just their opinion. So I haven't really seen it as pressure, but just a lot of unnecessary attention, to be honest. I don't think it's that, or in my opinion, that big of a thing. But obviously, as I said, with not much sport going on at the moment, it kind of leaves people with not much to write about.
Kade, then what do you think? I think this is probably a rugby question. Where do you think your game is at the moment? If you compare yourself to your contemporaries, and Western Province, they're not short as an example of fly-offs. Where do you think your game is at the moment? I mean, obviously, it's a question that requires a little bit of introspection.
So, okay, before you get there, you've obviously signed with Province at the moment.
Yes.
And are you allowed to sign for how long?
For the next, till 2022. I'll sign with Western.
Okay, sorry, man. I thought I was reading your mind, 22. I thought I was... There you go.
I think there are definitely aspects of my game that I would say aren't at a standard that they maybe should be. And I'm comparing myself now because I would like to, my goal is to obviously play senior rugby from this year, from next year, depending on when rugby goes back. But it is to play senior rugby and to play Currie Cup, whether it's Currie Cup or Super Rugby. So I'm going to compare myself with the guys in those positions. And I think there are definitely parts of my game that aren't at the level that they should probably be at. But with that being said, I believe that there also are areas of my game that I believe are good enough. And I think it's just about me growing as a player now and about me improving my weaknesses and at the same time just growing my strengths. So I do think there is a lot of room for improvement, for sure. I think you mentioned it earlier that I've missed out on a year of coaching, I've missed out on half a year of coaching, which is fair to say. It's fairly true. But at the same time, I believe I've gained a lot of experience being around the likes of Johan Nkosi and Andre Pollard and just experiencing how they how can I say, how they look at rugby and their perspective on rugby. I mean, the way that they, I've told a bunch of people, like, I thought I knew rugby and I knew a lot about rugby. But when you speak to guys like Andre and you sit down and actually have a conversation, you realize how little you know about it. And you realize how much more there is to learn and how much better you can become.
Dean, let's come back to you. So Kade comes back and I'm not too sure when the conversation would have come. Dad, I'm looking to come back home or whatever the case is. Here's the scenario. What goes through you knowing that your son is coming back? That's one. Or do you go, sherbet cake? We need to just wait it out a bit and make this French thing work.
Look, at the end of the day, as a family, we've always been there to support Kade. So, he was asked to come back to the SA Under-20 camp.
Yeah.
So, and not to get into too many things or too much, but Montpellier had originally agreed to release him on 2 occasions to come back. And they then did a U-turn and they said no. So at the end of the day, Kade felt that it was more important to come back to the SA Under-20 camp and to be part of it and to be coached by great coaches. And he felt that his game would improve by being back here for that. So, at the end of the day, all we can do as a family is support him in that decision. And just take it from there. So, that's what happened.
And
Dean, what did you advise?
Yeah.
Sorry, Dean, what would you advise? I mean, no doubt there are many parents who find yourself in the situation you found yourself last year, May, maybe
Yes.
perhaps April, March, just before that phase, and having to advise their sons. Always make the example of, your kids staying with you for 18 years and then all of a sudden they've got to pack up. They can probably speak 2 languages at best. Now they've got to pack up, go to another country without the support of your family, without, a background or a safety net, into the unknown, as it were. What advice would you give, or what type of considerations does one take into account when speaking to your son about that? Particularly if you take into consideration the rand to the dollar, or the pound to the dollar, and the lures going overseas.
Yeah. Look, all I can say is, and I think Kade spoke to a lot of senior players over there, and I think the advice that he's come back with is to learn your rugby here as a junior, because the structures and the coaches here in South Africa are very good. And I think it also depends on the kid and the type of kid, that's looking to go overseas. So there's a lot of factors I think that you have to look at. But I do believe it's a great experience to go overseas. And I just think it depends on the opportunity that the kid has here, or whether there's an opportunity overseas. But it is tough. The language obviously is tough. So yeah, that would be my advice is you need to look at the kid and then decide from there what's best for the kid.
Knowing what you know now, Dean, would you make the same decision as a family for him to go?
Yes, without a doubt. I think that with Kade coming back and talking to us about the experiences that he's had over there, being part of the senior setup in terms of playing matches with them during the week, playing with them in the week, having to sit down with Andre Pollard, having to become mates with Johan Nkosi and Jan Serpentine, Francois Steyn. You can't buy that experience. And I feel that Kade's learned a hell of a lot over those 4 months, being surrounded by those, if I can use the word, legends, who have won World Cups, Bismarck du Plessis, for example. So I think he's gained a lot out of the experience, and I certainly wouldn't change it. I would have sent him again.
Yeah, I would do the same thing. I don't regret it for a second. I think it's made things interesting, and it's made the last couple of months very interesting. I'd not change it at all.
Okay, speaking about experiences you can't buy, if you had to compare the South African model and environment in contrast with the French model and environment, what would you say are similarities or things that are different?
Okay, so I'll compare the junior structures there to the junior structures, or the structures I was a part of back home. But the structures are very different. I'd say the league that we were a part of, or that I was a part of, it's under 20, it's like under 21 / under 23 league. You're allowed a certain amount of under 23 players. So it's a bit of an older league to what, obviously I was involved in, which is obviously the under 18 Craven Week and whatnot. So if I can compare those two, I'd say the coaching and the standard of rugby at our under 18 league is better. It's a lot better. Their physicality though is, I felt, a bit of a notch up. They obviously are a bit older, and the guys obviously have been out of school a bit longer, but I thought it was very physical rugby. So with that being said, the style of play was very much forward orientated and very much crashed up. They're very big on set pieces. So scrums, lineouts are, I think that's everything to them. That's what they look forward to the most in their game. So scrums, lineouts, they're big on that. They're big on first phase moves. With that being said, it rains quite a bit, so your kicking game is quite important. We're obviously back in SA, we tend to run the ball a bit more. Depends on obviously. Run the ball. Never knew what a kick was. So it depends obviously where in the country you play, but I felt it was much more of a running game compared to that. I felt it was kind of if there is space out wide, it didn't matter to them. You kick the ball and you chase and you kind of just wait for your set phases. You wait for the opposition or yourself to make a mistake, so you kind of scrum or line. So it's quite different. It's actually very different.
Mziwakhe, let me come to you quickly before we wrap it up. Let's talk about your ideal 9. So give me some of the attributes that you look. Sorry, ideal 10 rather. We're looking for the international flower. We're looking for the perfect flower. Just the attributes that you're looking for in terms of that.
Yeah, Pierre, I think if you speak about an ideal 10, someone who you'd piece together, I would start with, break it up into tangibles and intangibles. If you speak about intangibles, I think if you speak about the intangibles, you've got to have someone, like I mentioned last week, wants the ball in his hand, someone who has the ability to have a presence and direct play. If that makes sense to you, someone who wants to be the jockey on the horse and direct play in that manner. If I speak about tangibles, you need a good distribution game, particularly if you're going to play here in South Africa. I guess in any way, as a matter of interest, you must have a really good distribution game. And then, in my opinion, and mine is a mere humble opinion, I think a 10 that really plays flat to the gain line, particularly in the advent of rush defenses and defenses employing a high line. At some stage, you need to stop that. So, and I think a 10 who plays flat and who can play in that heat or in that pressure and on the gain line, for me, is a massive asset. Then, obviously, these days, if we look at Super Rugby, if we look at, the premier competitions, if your 10 can't tackle, it's the closest channel to the set piece. So teams exploit that if your 10's weak defensively. You don't judge a 10 on his ability to tackle, but if he's a problem or if he's a weakness, then teams will exploit it. So I think you must have a 10 that at the very least can stop something. And then to finish off, in the modern game with defenses, employing a high line, there's plenty of kick space around. So there's an opportunity, but you must have an ability to find that kick space. So I think, those things, you'd be able to build a quality 10 with P.
Thank you so much. Kate, just as a closing yourself, Dean, as well, it's obviously COVID-19. To the guys at school who will probably played one or two games, what would you like to say to them? Or how would you motivate them during this time, especially guys from your old school, Paul Roos, who are looking to have a massive season again this year?
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Obviously, it's from grade 8. You look forward to your MATRIC year and your MATRIC rugby season. So it's very unfortunate the situation we're in. Obviously, it's out of our control and out of our hands completely. But just to kind of stick in there and just hope that they do get a game or two. I really hope they do for their sake, for the schoolboys around the country. I hope that they get just a game or two, just to experience that and just to experience that the feeling of playing first team for those that haven't played it before. But I think just try and make this as big of a positive as you can. Just work on yourself, work on your rugby abilities, your academics, do as much as you can in this time. I mean, much more free time now than what you had before. So just do your best to become a better person, I'd say.
Dean, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your thoughts and your honesty in everything that we've spoken about, as I'm sure to our audience. Thank you so much, my friend.
Guys, thank you very, very much. Thanks a lot.
Kade, I get worried when you're giving advice about academics, bro.
So I'm a flower. It's fine. You can take my advice. If I was a forward, so I would question myself as well. That's fine.
But your body type doesn't say forward, Kade. You can't be like 10 kilograms and think you're forward.
Thanks. As always, my friend, thank you so much for joining us. Your presence is really appreciated, especially your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Pete. Just as well, my French is up to standard.
Yeah. Bonjour, merci. The show is proudly brought to you by Yebo Tanks. Yebo Tanks is in partnership with the South African government during the pandemic.